The morning sun hit my infinity pool just right, turning the water into liquid gold. I sat on my custom teak deck chair, wrapped in a silk robe that cost more than my in-laws spent on groceries in a month, sipping French press coffee from a mug engraved with "Home Sweet Home." The same phrase my mother-in-law once gave me with the caption, "For when you finally have a real home." The irony wasn't lost on me. Through the perfectly manicured hedge separating our properties, mine being 700 square feet larger and worth 200,000 more, I could see directly into Patricia and Richard's kitchen window. Then I saw it. Their silver Mercedes slowed to a complete stop as it passed my house. Both their faces pressed against the windshield, mouths hanging open like cartoon characters. The mansion they didn't know I'd bought, the pool they didn't think I could afford, the life they said I'd never have. I raised my coffee mug in a cheerful wave. Patricia's face went white. Richard's went red. And me? I smiled the kind of smile that comes from 3 years of patient planning, strategic silence, and watching people underestimate you so completely that their shock becomes your vindication. But let me tell you how we got here, because this story doesn't start with a mansion and a pool deck. It started 3 years ago with a tiny apartment and a dinner party that changed everything. The apartment wasn't bad, let me be clear about that from the start, because Patricia made it sound like we were living in a cardboard box under a bridge. It was a 2-bedroom in Riverside, 900 square feet of clean, functional space with hardwood floors Jake and I had refinished ourselves. We had a small balcony where I grew herbs in terracotta pots, a clawfoot tub I'd restored from Craigslist, and furniture we'd carefully selected from estate sales, and that one splurge couch we'd saved 6 months to buy. It was home, our home, the first place that was truly ours. But to Patricia, it was evidence of our failure to launch into real adulthood. I'm Emma Chen, and at the time, I was a 28-year-old financial analyst pulling in $85,000 a year. My husband Jake was a high school English teacher making $55,000. Combined, we had a solid income of $140,000, more than comfortable for two people in their late 20s. But we didn't look wealthy. We drove a 2015 Honda Civic, we shopped at Target, we meal prepped on Sundays and brought lunch to work. To the casual observer, we were just another young couple trying to make it in an expensive city. What they didn't know, what Jake barely knew, was that I'd been investing aggressively since college. 40% of every paycheck went straight into index funds, stock portfolios, and some very lucky cryptocurrency investments from 2017 that had multiplied beyond my wildest dreams. My secret side hustle as a financial consultant for small businesses brought in another $60,000 a year that I quietly funneled into investments. I had a Fidelity account with numbers that would make most people's eyes water and a clear 5-year plan to buy property when the time was right. But I wasn't advertising any of this because I'd learned early in my career that women who talk about money are either bragging or desperate, while men who talk about money are just being financially savvy. So I kept quiet, lived modestly, and waited. The first time Jake took me to meet his parents, I should have known what I was walking into. The warning signs were there. The way he got quiet in the car, the way his hands gripped the steering wheel too tightly, and the way he said, "Just don't take anything they say personally, okay?" "How bad can it be?" I'd asked, adjusting my outfit for the 3rd time. Reader, it was bad. The Maxwell estate, yes, they actually had a sign, was exactly what I'd expected. Sprawling suburban colonial with professionally landscaped yards, a stone facade, columns that served no structural purpose, and a fountain in the front yard that cost more to maintain than our monthly rent. Patricia opened the door before we could knock. Mid-50s, blonde highlights, tennis bracelet catching the light. The kind of artificial smile that real estate agents and dental hygienists perfect. "Jacob, you're here." She pulled him into a hug that looked more like a performance than actual affection. Then her eyes landed on me, and I watched the smile calcify into something sharper. "And this must be Emma." She looked me up and down in one quick assessment that took in my Nordstrom Rack dress, my good shoes, and my Kate Spade purse, bought on sale but clearly not the right brand for this zip code. "It's so nice to finally meet you," I said, extending my hand. She took it limply, the way you might touch something you suspect is contaminated. "Jacob has told us so much about you. A financial analyst," he said. "How modern." Modern, the way she said it made it sound like a diagnosis. The house was a showcase of calculated wealth. White marble countertops, white cabinets, and white tile floors. Everything professionally staged, nothing was actually lived in. The kind of house that exists to impress rather than to be enjoyed. Richard emerged from the study, tall, silver-haired, wearing golf clothes despite it being February. "The teacher arrives!" His voice boomed with false heartiness. He clapped Jake on the shoulder hard enough to make him wince. "And this is the girlfriend." "Fiancé," Jake corrected quietly. "We got engaged last month, remember?" Right. Congratulations." "Emma, right? Jacob says you work in finance." "Financial analyst, yes. I work for—" "Fascinating. You know, I've been in investment banking for 30 years, before you were born, probably." He laughed at his own joke. "The industry has changed so much, all these young people coming in with their degrees thinking they know everything." I hadn't even sat down yet, and I was already being condescended to. Patricia gestured to a bar stool at the kitchen island. Sit. Can I get you something to drink? We have wine, beer, sparkling water." "Water would be great, thank you." "Just water, are you sure? We have a very nice Chardonnay. Well, I suppose it might be outside your price range normally. Consider it a treat." Jake's jaw tightened. I put my hand on his knee under the counter. "Let it go," the gesture said. "Water is perfect," I said with a smile that was starting to hurt my face. "So," Patricia said, pouring water from a glass pitcher that probably cost what we paid for a week of groceries. "Jacob tells us you're living in the city. An apartment," he said. Here we go. "Yes, we have a 2-bedroom in Riverside. It's a great neighborhood, close to Jake's school, and my office is—" "Oh, you're renting." Patricia's voice pitched up like I'd just announced we were living in a tent. "How practical." The word practical came out the way most people say unfortunate. "The rental market in the city is actually really competitive right now," I explained, knowing even as I spoke that she wasn't actually interested. "We got a great deal on our place." "Oh, I suppose city living has its charms when you're young," Patricia interrupted, already moving on to arranging cheese on a board that clearly never seen actual daily use. "We have plenty of space," Jake said, his voice tight. 900 square feet. 900 square feet, Patricia laughed, the sound like wind chimes in a hurricane. "Oh, sweetie, that's adorable. This kitchen alone is 800 square feet." She wasn't wrong. Her kitchen was roughly the size of our entire living area. But the way she said it made our home sound like a dollhouse instead of an actual place where actual adults lived. Richard joined us at the island, beer in hand. "So you kids are still renting, huh? You know, Patricia and I bought our first house when we were 25. Of course, that was when people had real jobs." The dig was so obvious I almost laughed. Jake was a teacher, literally shaping young minds every day. I was a financial analyst with an MBA from Stanford. Both of us had solid jobs by any definition except the one Richard was using. "The housing market is different now than it was in 1995, I said, keeping my voice level. "Average home prices relative to median income have—" "Oh, there's always an excuse," Richard waved his hand dismissively. "When Patricia and I were your age, we just buckled down and made it happen. No excuses, no complaining. That's what adults do." I felt Jake's leg tense under my hand. I squeezed gently. "Not yet, not worth it." The doorbell rang. Patricia practically sprinted to answer it. That must be Ashley and Brandon. Ashley was Jake's younger sister, though you'd never know it from how Patricia talked about them. Where Jake had chosen teaching, following his passion at the cost of a bigger paycheck, Ashley had married Brandon, a hedge fund manager who wore Patagonia vests, unironically, and said "circle back" in casual conversation. They swept in with the energy of people used to being the stars of any gathering. Ashley was blonde like her mother, thin in that carefully maintained way, wearing a Tory Burch dress that cost approximately what we spent on rent. Jacob, she hugged her brother, then turned to me with an assessing look. You must be Emma. I've heard so much about you. The way she said it made it clear that what she'd heard wasn't particularly flattering. Brandon gave me a bro nod, the kind of minimal acknowledgement some men give to women they don't consider worth conversation. So Jacob says you're living in the city, in an apartment. Why did everyone say apartment like it was a diagnosis? Yes, we have a place in Riverside. Oh, I know Riverside. That's where Brandon and I lived right after we got married while we were saving for our house. Speaking of which, have you seen our new place? Without waiting for an answer, she launched into what can only be described as a real estate presentation. Photos of a massive house, 5 bedrooms, 4.5 baths, chef's kitchen, home theater, finished basement, professionally landscaped yard. It's 4,500 square feet, she swiped through images. The mortgage,
Ashley said, swiping through images. We closed last month. The mortgage is brutal, but that's the price of building equity instead of just throwing money away on rent. There it was, the throwing money away on rent line that every homeowner loves to deploy to make renters feel like financial toddlers. Your place is beautiful, I said, because what else can you say? Thanks. I mean, it's a lot of space for just the two of us right now, but we're thinking about kids soon, so we wanted to build a proper foundation for a family. The implication was clear. We were not building a proper foundation. Dinner was served in a dining room that could have hosted a small wedding. The table was set with china that had probably been in the family for generations, crystal glasses that caught light from a chandelier that looked like it cost more than my car. So, Emma, Richard said, cutting his chicken with boarding school precision, Jacob tells me you studied finance at State. That's a good school. Not Ivy League, of course, but solid. Not Ivy League, as if that was a character flaw instead of just a fact about where my scholarship nanny went the furthest. I had a great experience there, I said. The finance program is actually ranked. Oh, I'm sure it's fine for what it is, he interrupted. I went to Princeton myself. That's where I met Patricia. She was at Smith. Ashley went to Smith too. Jacob broke the tradition by going to State. Emma got her MBA from Stanford, Jake said, his voice carrying an edge. The table went quiet for half a second. Stanford? Patricia's voice was bright with surprise. Well, that must have been expensive. I hope you're not drowning in student loans. And just like that, my achievement was turned into a burden. I didn't mention that I'd gotten a full ride. Why bother? Student loans can really hold you back from big purchases, Richard said sagely. Like a house. That's probably why you're still renting, right? Waiting to pay down debt before you can even think about a down payment. Don't worry, you'll get there someday. Maybe. Ashley added with fake encouragement. I mean, Brandon and I were able to buy because his parents helped with the down payment, but not everyone has that advantage. You just have to work harder, save longer. Jake's grip on my hand was starting to hurt. I bit my tongue so hard I tasted copper. I wanted to show them my portfolio, the stocks I'd been buying since college, the index funds, and the cryptocurrency I'd invested in back in 2017 when Bitcoin was $4,000 and everyone thought I was crazy. I wanted to pull out my phone and show them my Fidelity accounts with $237,000 in liquid assets. But I didn't, because something in me understood that this wasn't about facts. This was about power, about keeping Jake and me in our place. As we finished dessert, some elaborate tiramisu Patricia claimed she'd made, but clearly hadn't, she dropped the bomb. This has been lovely, but I have to ask, Emma, how long are you planning to stay in that apartment? Jacob is going to be 33 soon. At some point, you have to think about the future, about building something permanent. We are building something permanent, I said, surprising myself with the firmness in my voice. We're building a life together. Patricia blinked, taken aback. Of course, she said quickly. I just mean that there's a difference between a life and a real foundation. Property, equity, something you can pass down. Someday you'll understand. She stood to clear plates. Well, enjoy the renting life while it lasts. Some people just aren't meant to own property, and that's okay. Everyone has different paths. The words hung in the air like a curse disguised as a blessing. Some people just aren't meant to own property. We drove home in silence for the first 10 minutes. Then Jake exploded. I am so sorry. I am so sorry. I knew they'd be judgmental, but that was. He ran his hand through his hair. They were horrible to you. They were, I agreed, calmly. We don't have to see them again. We can just. Jake, I put my hand on his leg. It's fine. It's not fine. They disrespected you. They disrespected us. They made it sound like we're failures because we rent a fucking apartment. They did. So why are you so calm? I looked out the window at the suburban houses giving way to city lights, thought about Patricia's face when she said some people just aren't meant to own property, thought about Richard's dismissive comments and Ashley's pity disguised as encouragement. Because, I said slowly, they just showed me exactly who they are, and now I know. Know what? A plan was forming in my head, a plan that would require patience, strategic silence, and years of careful execution, a plan that would be absolutely, deliciously worth it. I know how to beat them, I said. Jake looked at me confused. What do you mean? You'll see. I squeezed his hand. Just trust me, and whatever happens in the next few years, no matter how your parents treat us, no matter what they say, don't defend me. Don't argue with them. Let them think whatever they want to think. Emma, trust me, I repeated. This is going to be fun. And it was, reader. It really, really was. The dinner wasn't an isolated incident. It was the beginning of a pattern that would repeat itself at every family gathering for the next 3 years. Thanksgiving dinner, 6 weeks after our first meeting, Patricia gave us a renter's survival kit as an early Christmas gift, a basket filled with command strips, thumbtacks that don't damage walls, and a book called The Apartment Dweller's Guide to Feeling Like You Have a Real Home. I saw this and thought of you two, she chirped. Since you're stuck renting for the foreseeable future, you might as well make the best of it. Jake's face turned red. I smiled sweetly and said, "How thoughtful, Patricia." Christmas brought more of the same. The family gathered at Ashley and Brandon's new house, the one they wouldn't stop talking about. Ashley gave us a tour that lasted 45 minutes, pointing out every expensive detail. The kitchen renovation alone was $80,000, but you have to invest in your home, build value. Richard cornered me by the wine bar. "Still in that apartment, Emma?" "Still there," I confirmed. If you need help with financial planning, I could give you some advice. Free of charge, of course. Family discount." He chuckled. "Sometimes young people just don't understand how to build wealth." I was a financial analyst with a Stanford MBA, currently sitting on nearly $250,000 in investments, getting financial advice from a man who refinanced his mortgage 3 times to maintain his lifestyle. The irony was exquisite. "That's very kind," I said. "I'll keep that in mind." Easter dinner brought the most painful moment yet. Patricia announced she was planning a family investment seminar. She'd hired a financial advisor to teach people who are struggling about money management. She looked directly at me. "I just think it's important that everyone in the family has the tools to succeed, even if some of us are starting from behind." Jake stood up so fast his chair fell over. "Mom, that's enough." "What? I'm trying to help. Emma, you're not offended, are you?" I put my hand on Jake's arm. "Not at all, Patricia. Financial literacy is so important. I'd love to attend." Jake stared at me like I'd lost my mind, but I had a plan, and that plan required me to be underestimated for just a little bit longer. It was during one of my routine real estate searches. I'd been monitoring the market for 2 years, waiting for the right opportunity, that I saw it. 1247 Oakmont Drive, the house directly next to Patricia and Richard. I clicked on the listing and my heart started racing. 4 bedrooms, 4.5 bathrooms, 4,500 square feet on a 0.4-acre lot. Built in 2019, practically brand new. Gourmet kitchen, master suite with spa bathroom, finished basement, 3-car garage, and the piece de resistance, a custom infinity pool with views of the entire neighborhood. listed at $1.2 million, recently reduced from $1.3 million due to a buyer backing out. I pulled up the tax records. Patricia and Richard's house, 3,800 square feet, built in 1987, assessed at $1.1 million. This house was bigger, newer, and worth more, and it was for sale. I sat there for a full 5 minutes just staring at the listing photos. Then I did what any good financial analyst would do. I ran the numbers. With my current liquid assets of $237,000, I could put down 50%, $600,000. That would give me an incredibly low mortgage payment, excellent interest rates, and massive negotiating power. Jake's teacher salary and my analyst income would easily cover the remaining mortgage. But more importantly, I'd been planning this for years. My consulting side business had grown to $75,000 annually, all funneled into investments. My stock portfolio had continued to climb, and that cryptocurrency investment, Bitcoin, had gone from $4,000 to $65,000. I pulled up my full financial picture. Liquid assets, $237,000, stock portfolio, $180,000, crypto holdings, $205,000. I'd sold half at the peak. Retirement accounts, $95,000. Total net worth at 28 years old, $717,000. I could afford this house, easily. I picked up my phone and called my mortgage broker, Sarah, a friend from business school. Sarah, I need you to do something for me, and I need it to be completely confidential. Okay, she sounded intrigued. I want to get pre-approved for a $1.2 million mortgage, but I don't want anyone to know. Not family, not mutual friends, no one, except me, you, and Jake. Emma, with your assets and income, you'll be approved in like 2 days. What's going on? I smiled at my computer screen, looking at the listing photos of the pool, the kitchen, the master suite with the view.
I'm about to buy my in-laws' worst nightmare. Telling Jake was the hardest part. We were in our tiny apartment, the one his family mocked relentlessly, when I pulled up the listing on my laptop. Jake, I need to show you something. He came over from the kitchen where he was grading papers. What's up? I turned the laptop toward him. This house just went on the market. He looked at the photos. Okay, it's nice, I guess. Why are you showing me random real estate listings? Look at the address. His eyes widened. That's next door to my parents. Yes. Emma, why are you looking at houses next to my parents? That's literally the last place. He stopped, looked at me, saw the expression on my face. Wait. Are you serious? I pulled up my financial spreadsheet, the one I'd been updating meticulously for years. I've been investing since college, very aggressively. I have $622,000 in liquid and semi-liquid assets right now. Jake's mouth fell open. You have what? $622,000 plus excellent credit and steady income. Sarah can get us pre-approved for the mortgage in 48 hours. We have over $500,000? He sat down hard on the couch. How? When? Why didn't you tell me? Because I wanted to surprise you. And because I hesitated. I wanted to wait until I found the perfect house. And Jake, this is the perfect house. He looked at the listing again. It's next to my parents. It's next to your parents. They'll see us every day. Every single day. A slow smile spread across his face. They said you'd never own property. They did. They said we were throwing money away on rent. They definitely said that. My mom gave you a renter survival kit for Christmas. She absolutely did. Jake started laughing, that deep, genuine laugh I hadn't heard since before we'd started attending family gatherings. This is insane. Completely insane. And you want to do this? I looked at him seriously. Jake, I want you to understand something. I don't need to prove anything to your parents. I'm financially successful because I worked hard and invested smart, not because I need their validation. But after 3 years of watching them treat us like failures, watching them mock everything we've built, Watching your mother insinuate that I'm holding you back from being a real man, yeah, I want to prove them wrong in the most spectacular way possible. By buying the house next door. By buying the better house next door. Bigger, newer, more expensive, with a pool they can see from their kitchen window. Jake kissed me. Hard. You're the smartest person I've ever met, and I love you. So we're doing this? Oh, we're absolutely doing this. But Emma, we have to keep it secret. If they find out before closing, already thought of that. We schedule tours when they're not home. We park a block away. We tell absolutely no one until the day we move in. When would that be? If we move fast, 60 days. The seller wants a quick close and we can offer cash heavy. They'll love our offer. Jake looked up the listing one more time, then at me. Let's buy a house. Sarah moved fast. Within 48 hours, we were pre-approved for $1.2 million. Within a week, we had a private tour scheduled with the listing agent at 2 p.m. on a Tuesday when Patricia and Richard were at their weekly golf game. The house was even better in person. Soaring ceilings, windows everywhere, that pool that looked like something from a resort. The master bedroom had a balcony with views of the entire neighborhood, including a direct sightline to Patricia and Richard's backyard. They can see us from here, Jake whispered, standing on the balcony. And we can see them. Every morning I can have my coffee right here and wave down at their kitchen. The listing agent, Carol, was smart enough not to ask why we kept laughing. We put in our offer that afternoon, $1.25 million, $50,000 over asking, with $625,000 down and a 30-day close. That's an aggressive offer, Carol said. The sellers will love the cash position. I think you'll get this. She was right. The sellers accepted within 4 hours. The next 6 weeks were an exercise in deception. We went to Patricia's birthday dinner wearing our usual modest clothes, driving our embarrassing Honda, playing the part of the struggling young couple. Still in that apartment? Richard asked, like he always did. Still there, I confirmed, like I always did. You know, there are first-time homebuyer programs for people who need assistance. No shame in it. Everyone needs help sometimes. We're okay for now, Jake said through gritted teeth. Ashley announced she was renovating her kitchen. Again, another $80,000 project. Must be nice to have the resources for home improvements. Some people just make better financial decisions. I smiled sweetly. You're absolutely right, Patricia. Financial decisions really do matter. Under the table, Jake squeezed my hand. 35 days until closing. 35 days until everything changed. We attended the family investment seminar Patricia had organized. The financial advisor, a CFP named Tom, went through basics about savings accounts, 401ks, and building an emergency fund. During the Q&A, Patricia asked, Tom, what would you say to young people who are, say, 30 years old and still renting? How far behind are they really? Well, that's not necessarily behind. Renting can be a smart choice depending on career mobility, market conditions. But they're not building equity, Patricia interrupted. They're just throwing money away, right? I wouldn't put it that way. What advice would you give someone in that situation to catch up to their peers who made better choices? I raised my hand. Tom, I have a question. Everyone turned to look at me. If someone had, say, $600,000 in liquid assets and was waiting for the right market conditions, would you advise them to buy immediately just to own property or wait for the optimal investment opportunity? The room went silent. Tom's eyebrows went up. Well, with that level of assets, you definitely want to wait for the right opportunity. Forcing a purchase just to own property wouldn't be smart financial planning. Interesting, I said. Thank you. Patricia was staring at me. Emma, that's a very specific hypothetical. I like to think through different scenarios. Financial planning is all about options, right? 28 days until closing. 3 weeks before closing, Patricia and Richard invited us to Sunday dinner. It was supposed to be a family meeting. We arrived to find not just Ashley and Brandon, but also Jake's brother Tom and his wife Sarah, plus Patricia's sister Linda, the whole family assembled like we were about to stage an intervention. Because we were. "Thank you all for coming," Patricia said once we were seated in the living room. "Richard and I have been talking, and we're concerned about Jacob and Emma's future." Here we go, I thought. Richard cleared his throat. "Son, you're going to be 33 next month. Emma's 30. You've been together for 4 years, married for 2, and you're still renting that apartment." "We're happy where we are," Jake said tightly. "But you're not building anything," Patricia jumped in. "You're not investing in your future, and we've realized that maybe you need help." She pulled out an envelope, a check.
"This is $20,000. Consider it an early inheritance. Or a loan, we'll figure it out later. But we want you to use it as a down payment on a house. A real house. It's time." The room was silent except for the ticking of their grandfather clock. $20,000. They thought we needed $20,000. I looked at Jake. He looked at me. We'd agreed not to reveal anything until moving day, but this? "That's very generous," Jake said slowly. "We just want you to succeed," Richard said, "to be real adults, to stop playing house in that apartment and actually build something." Ashley nodded sympathetically. "We all need help sometimes. There's no shame in it." I bit my tongue. Hard. 15 days until closing. We could make it 15 more days. "Patricia, Richard," I said carefully, "we really appreciate this offer, but we need to think about it." "What's there to think about?" Patricia looked hurt. "We're trying to help you." "And we're grateful," Jake said. "We just need time to process." Tom spoke up for the first time. "Mom, Dad, maybe they have their own plans." "What plans?" Richard scoffed. "They've been in that apartment for 4 years. If they had plans, they'd have executed them by now." The condescension was breathtaking, but I smiled and accepted the check, knowing that in 15 days I'd be handing it back. Closing day arrived on a Thursday. We told Patricia and Richard we both had to work late, so we couldn't make it to yet another family dinner. Instead, we sat at a title company conference room, signing document after document that transferred ownership of 1247 Oakmont Drive from the seller to us. The closing agent walked through each form: the deed, the mortgage documents, the title insurance. Jake's hands shook slightly as he signed his name. When it was done, the agent handed us 2 sets of keys. "Congratulations, you're now homeowners." I held the keys like they were made of gold. In a way, they were. "Let's go see our house," Jake whispered. We drove to Oakmont Drive, parking in what was now our driveway. The house stood there, majestic and perfect, with the sold sticker already on the realtor sign. We walked through our house, for the first time as owners. Every room felt bigger, more real, more ours. The master bedroom balcony had a direct view into Patricia and Richard's backyard. Their kitchen window was perfectly visible from our pool deck. "Tomorrow is moving day," I said. "Tomorrow they find out." Jake pulled me close. "Thank you for all of this, for being patient with my family, for being brilliant, for planning this whole crazy thing." "Thank you for trusting me," I said. We spent that night in our old apartment one last time, knowing that tomorrow everything would change. The moving trucks arrived at 6 a.m. We'd hired a professional company that specialized in discreet relocations. They'd move us completely in one day, setting up furniture, unpacking boxes, making the house look lived in immediately. By 9 a.m., our apartment was empty. By noon, furniture was being unloaded at the mansion. We'd timed everything perfectly. Patricia and Richard would be home from their morning activities by 2 p.m. I watched from our new kitchen window as the trucks pulled up, as movers carried in our furniture, as the house transformed from empty to ours. At 1:30 p.m., I saw Patricia's Mercedes pull into their driveway. She got out, arms full of grocery bags, walking toward her house. Then she froze.
She'd seen the moving trucks, seen the furniture, seen the activity, but she hadn't connected the dots yet. She was probably wondering which new neighbor was moving in, maybe hoping for someone more appropriate than whoever had sold the house. I watched her go inside, watched her put away groceries, watched her look out her kitchen window at the trucks. By 4 p.m., everything was moved in. The movers left. Jake and I stood in our new kitchen looking at each other. "Are you ready?" he asked. "So ready." We decided not to tell anyone we were moving, not to announce it, not to make a big deal about it, just to let them discover it naturally. Tomorrow was Sunday dinner at Patricia and Richard's house. Tomorrow, we'd arrive as their next-door neighbors. I woke up at 6 a.m. in our new master bedroom, sunlight streaming through windows that overlooked the entire neighborhood. For a moment, I forgot where I was. Then it hit me. We owned this house. We lived next door to Patricia and Richard, and they had no idea. I pulled on my silk robe, one I'd bought years ago but never worn because it felt too extravagant for our apartment, and made my way downstairs to our chef kitchen. The coffee maker was already set up, the fancy French press I'd ordered specifically for this moment. I made coffee and carried it out to the pool deck. The morning sun hit the infinity pool perfectly, turning the water into liquid gold. I sat in one of our custom teak chairs and looked directly at Patricia and Richard's house. Through their kitchen window, I could see movement. Patricia was up, probably starting her day with her usual routine, making coffee, checking her phone, judging the entire neighborhood from her kitchen throne. Then she walked past the window, stopped, looked out the pool. Her face was confused. The neighbors didn't have a pool. When had they installed a pool? She looked closer, trying to see the house number through the hedge. That's when I raised my coffee mug and waved. Patricia's face went through a series of expressions: confusion, recognition, shock, disbelief, like watching someone process impossible information in real time. She disappeared from the window. 30 seconds later, Richard appeared, also staring. I waved again. Richard pulled out his phone, probably calling Jake or maybe the realtor or possibly 911 to report that his worst nightmare had somehow manifested next door. Jake appeared behind me in his robe, carrying his own coffee. How long until they figure it out? Patricia just saw me. Give them 5 minutes. This is going to be the best Sunday dinner in the history of Sunday dinners. We sat there, sipping coffee, watching their house like it was theater. At 6:30 a.m., we saw both Patricia and Richard come outside in their robes, walking to the edge of their property line, trying to get a better look at our house. I waved from the pool deck. They didn't wave back. Jake's phone started ringing at 6:45 a.m. Patricia's name flashed. Jake answered on speaker. "Hey, Mom." "Jacob." Her voice was tight, controlled, the way she sounded when she was furious but trying not to show it. "Can you explain something to me?" "What's that?" "Why does it look like your wife is having coffee on the pool deck of the house next door to us?" Jake looked at me. I nodded. "Because Emma is having coffee on the pool deck of the house next door to you." Silence. Then, "I don't understand." "What's not to understand? We bought a house. We moved in yesterday." "You bought the house next door? The $1.25 million house?" "Actually, we paid $1.25 million. It was worth it." More silence. I could hear Richard in the background saying something sharp. "Jacob, I think you need to come over here right now. We need to talk about this." "Can't, Mom. We're not dressed yet, but we'll see you at Sunday dinner like usual. We'll just walk over since we're neighbors now." "Jacob!" "See you at 1." He hung up. I started laughing so hard I nearly spilled my coffee. "The look on your face when you said that? Did you hear her voice? She couldn't even process it." "Give her 2 hours. She'll be at our door." I was wrong. It took 45 minutes. The doorbell rang at 7:30 a.m. Jake and I were still in robes, having taken our time getting dressed because we knew what was coming. Through the video doorbell, another upgrade the old house didn't have, we saw Patricia and Richard standing on our porch. Patricia was dressed like she was going to a board meeting. Richard looked like he'd thrown on the first clothes he could find. "Should we make them wait?" Jake asked. "No, let's get this over with. The real reveal is at dinner anyway." I opened the door. "Patricia, Richard, good morning. Come in." They stepped into our foyer, a space larger than our apartment's living room had been, and I watched their faces as they took it in. The vaulted ceilings, the custom light fixture, the hardwood floors flowed seamlessly into the open-concept living area. "Welcome to our home," I said sweetly. Patricia's mouth was a thin line. "Emma, Jacob, I think you owe us an explanation." "About what?" Jake asked innocently. "About this," Patricia gestured around. "How did you afford this house? When did you even look at it? Why didn't you tell us?" "We looked at it 6 weeks ago, made an offer the same day, closed on Thursday, moved in yesterday." But the down payment alone would be—" Richard was doing math in his head, coming up short. "$625,000, I supplied helpfully. "We put down 50%, made our offer very attractive to the sellers." Patricia looked like someone had slapped her. "You have $625,000? "Had, we spent it on the house, but yes, we had it." "How? You're a teacher and a—" She stopped, clearly struggling. "Financial analysts," I finished, "with an MBA from Stanford, and a very successful consulting side business, and some extremely fortunate investment decisions over the past 10 years. I walked them through the house because the tour was part of the plan. I wanted them to see every room, every upgrade, every detail that made this house better than theirs. The gourmet kitchen with commercial-grade appliances. This kitchen is about 950 square feet, a little bigger than our old apartment. The master suite with the spa bathroom and balcony. The view from here is incredible. You can see the whole neighborhood, including your backyard. The finished basement with the home theater. We're thinking about doing movie nights. You're welcome to join, of course. And finally, the pool deck, la pièce de résistance. The pool was the selling point, honestly," I said, settling into one of the lounge chairs. "There's something about having your morning coffee out here. Very peaceful." Patricia was gripping her purse so tightly her knuckles were white. "I don't understand. You spent 3 years in that apartment. You drove that old Honda. You dressed like someone who wasn't trying to impress anyone," I suggested gently. "Patricia, just because we didn't look wealthy doesn't mean we weren't. We were just prioritizing differently." "But you said you were struggling. You accepted our charity, our advice." "No," I interrupted, my voice firm now. "You assumed we were struggling. You offered advice we never asked for. You gave us a renter survival kit for Christmas and staged an intervention to offer us $20,000 for a down payment we didn't need." I pulled the check out of my robe pocket. I'd been carrying it since Thursday for exactly this moment, and handed it back to her. "We won't be needing this, but thank you for the thought." Richard found his voice. This is insane. You let us think you were poor? You let us offer help. You made us look like fools." "No," Jake said, his voice harder than I'd ever heard it. "You made yourselves look like fools. Emma and I never asked for your help, never complained about money, never gave you any reason to think we were struggling, except that we chose to rent instead of buy before we were ready. You assumed we were failures because we didn't do things your way. You mocked our apartments, insulted our jobs, insinuated that I was holding Jake back from being a real man. And the whole time, I had more money in my investment accounts than you have in equity in your house." The truth of that statement hung in the air. I knew from public records exactly what they'd paid for their house in 1987, and I knew they'd refinanced multiple times. Their equity was probably around $400,000. My liquid assets before buying this house was $622,000. Patricia looked like she might cry. "Why didn't you tell us?" Because I wanted to see who you really were when you thought you had the upper hand, and you showed me exactly that. The family dinner that afternoon was legendary. Jake and I walked over at 12:55 p.m., dressed casually but in clothes that were clearly expensive. My Cartier watch caught the light. Jake's Tom Ford shirt was unmistakable to anyone who knew brands. Patricia opened the door. She'd clearly been crying. Everyone's in the living room. We walked in to find Ashley, Brandon, Tom, and his wife Sarah all staring at us like we'd grown two heads. "Is it true? You bought the house next door?" Ashley asked immediately. "We did," I said cheerfully. "Closed on Thursday. You should come see it after dinner. The pool is really something." Brandon was looking at Jake with new respect, and was that fear? "How much did you put down?" Brandon asked. 50%, Jake said casually, made the offer more attractive. You could have heard a pin drop. But you were renting," Ashley sputtered. "You drove a shitty car. You dressed like people who weren't trying to impress anyone," I suggested cheerfully. "Ashley, just because you knew what we drove or wore or lived in was because your mother made it a topic of conversation at every family gathering for 3 years." Richard was gripping his beer like a lifeline. "I want to know where you got the money, because this doesn't add up." I'd been waiting for this. I pulled out my phone and opened my investment portfolio. I've been investing since I was 22, 40% of every paycheck into index funds and individual stocks. I bought Bitcoin when it was $4,000 in 2017, sold half at $65,000. I have a consulting business that brings in $75,000 a year. My salary as a senior financial analyst is $145,000, not the $85,000 I was making when we first met. Jake got promoted to department head last year, so he makes $72,000 now. Combined income of $217,000. I showed them the numbers, the Fidelity account, the stock portfolio, the cryptocurrency holdings, the retirement accounts. My net worth before buying the house was $717,000. After the down payment and closing costs, we still have about $80,000 in liquid savings, plus ongoing income and investments. The room was silent. Tom started laughing. "This is amazing. This is the best thing I've ever seen." His wife Sarah was grinning. "I'm so proud of you guys." But Ashley looked sick. "You had $750,000 and you let us think you were poor?" "We didn't let you think anything. You assumed, based on the fact that we rented an apartment and drove an old car and didn't buy designer clothes to impress people at family dinners." Patricia finally spoke. "But why? Why not just tell us? Why let us offer help you didn't need?" I looked at her, and for the first time, I let her see the anger I'd been hiding for 3 years. "Because you needed to feel superior to someone, Patricia, and we were convenient targets. Jake chose teaching over a high-paying corporate job, which you saw as a failure. I'm a woman in finance who doesn't perform wealth the way you think I should. We were easy to look down on." "That's not—" "It is. Every family gathering for 3 years, the comments about renting forever, the pity about our tiny apartment, the renter's survival kit, the investment seminar for people who are struggling, the $20,000 check like we were charity cases. You needed us to be failures so you could feel successful." "And now?" Richard asked quietly. "Now you're living next to people who own a house worth more than yours, with better finishes, more space, and a pool you can see from your kitchen window. Every single day, you'll be reminded that you underestimated us." Jake squeezed my hand. I'd gone further than we'd planned, but it felt good to finally say everything I'd been holding back. "So what happens now?" Ashley asked. "Now we're neighbors," I said simply. "We'll see each other at family gatherings, we'll wave when we see you, we'll live our lives in the house we earned, and hopefully you'll learn something about not judging people based on appearances." The actual meal was awkward in a way that was deeply satisfying. Patricia kept glancing out the kitchen window at our pool. Richard barely spoke. Ashley and Brandon kept exchanging glances like they were recalculating their worldview. But Tom and Sarah were enjoying themselves immensely. "So the pool," Tom said, grinning. "Is it heated?" "Year-round," Jake confirmed. "We're planning to use it a lot." "Can we come over sometime?" Sarah asked. "Our kids would love it." "Absolutely. You're welcome anytime." Patricia set down her fork with a clatter. "I just don't understand how you hid this from us. The house hunting, the mortgage process, the closing. You never said anything." "Because it wasn't your business," I said simply. "Our finances aren't your business. Our choices aren't your business. We're adults who made adult decisions without needing input or approval from family." "But we're your family. We should be involved." "Like you involved us when you refinanced your house 3 times. The words were out before I could stop them. Richard's face went red. "How do you know about that?" "Public records. I'm a financial analyst, remember? I looked up the property records when we were researching the neighborhood. You bought this house for $285,000 in 1987. You've refinanced 3 times, most recently 2 years ago. Your current mortgage balance is probably around $650,000, which means your equity is maybe $450,000. I shouldn't have said it. It was petty, but 3 years of condescension had earned me 1 moment of pettiness. My house before buying the mansion had more liquid assets than you have in equity after 35 years of home ownership, so maybe, just maybe, you weren't in a position to lecture us about financial responsibility." Patricia stood up. "I think you should leave." "Gladly," I said. "Thanks for dinner, Patricia. We'll see ourselves out. Through the backyard. It's shorter to our house." The first week as neighbors was exactly as awkward as you would imagine. Monday morning, I had my coffee on the pool deck at 6:30 a.m. Patricia saw me through her window, looked away quickly. Tuesday, I waved when Richard was getting his newspaper. He pretended not to see me. Wednesday, Ashley drove slowly by, craning her neck to see our house. I was watering the garden. I waved. She accelerated and didn't wave back. Thursday, Tom and Sarah came over with their kids. The children jumped in the pool while the adults sat on the deck with margaritas. "This is incredible," Sarah said, looking around. "I can't believe you pulled this off." "Worth every penny," I said.
"How are things with Patricia and Richard?" Tom asked. "Tense. But honestly, I don't care anymore. I spent 3 years caring about their opinion, trying to keep the peace, letting things slide. I'm done." "Good," Tom said firmly. They needed this wake-up call. Friday brought the first sign of change. I was working in my home office, a luxury I'd never had in the apartment, when the doorbell rang. Through the video screen, I saw Patricia standing on the porch, holding what looked like a pie. I debated not answering, but curiosity won. "Patricia," I said, opening the door, "this isn't expected." She looked uncomfortable. "I made an apple pie. I thought maybe we could talk." I let her in, led her to the kitchen that was bigger than hers, which we both knew, and cut 2 slices of pie. We sat at the island in silence for a moment. "I've been thinking a lot this week," Patricia finally said, "about what you said at dinner, about how we treated you." I waited. "You were right. I needed to feel superior. Not just to you, to everyone. It's been that way my whole life. Growing up poor, working so hard to get here, to this house, this neighborhood. I thought I'd finally made it. And then you needed everyone to know you'd made it," I finished. "Yes. And when you and Jake showed up, living modestly, not caring about impressing anyone, it bothered me, because you were happy, genuinely happy. And I realized I've spent 35 years in this house trying to prove something to people who don't care." She was crying now. Real tears, not the manipulative kind I'd seen before. "I'm so sorry, Emma, for all of it. The comments, the pity, the assumptions. You didn't deserve any of it." I took a deep breath. "Thank you for saying that. But Patricia, you understand that this isn't just about apologizing, right? It's about actually changing how you treat people. Not just me and Jake, everyone." "I know. I've already started therapy. Richard is coming next week."
That surprised me. Really? You were right about the refinancing, too. We've been living beyond our means for years, trying to keep up appearances. When you revealed your finances, it was like a mirror showing me how foolish we've been. We're meeting with the financial planner next month to get things on track. That's good, Patricia. Really good. Can we start over? Be real neighbors instead of whatever we were before? I thought about the 3 years of hurt, the judgments, the assumptions. But I also thought about what my therapist had told me once. Holding on to anger doesn't hurt the people who wronged you. It only hurts yourself. We can try, I said, but it has to be genuine. No more competitions, no more trying to one-up each other. No more judging people's worth by their house or car or clothes. I promise. And Emma, your house is beautiful. You should be very proud. I am. And Patricia, your house is beautiful too. It always was. You just never seemed to enjoy it because you were too busy using it to impress people. After she left, I sat at my kitchen island looking out at the pool, thinking about how strange life is. 3 years ago, I'd walked into their house as the girlfriend who wasn't good enough. Today, I'd sat in my own kitchen and accepted an apology from the woman who tried to make me feel worthless. Progress takes strange forms sometimes. The transformation wasn't immediate, but it was real. Patricia and Richard stopped the performative wealth displays. They had a garage sale where they sold half of their belongings. Richard retired early to reduce stress. Patricia started volunteering at a food bank. Ashley and Brandon struggled more with the change. They still drove by our house with obvious envy, still made comments about lucky investments and good timing, but Jake's relationship with his sister was his to manage, not mine. Tom and Sarah became our closest friends. Our kids-to-be would grow up swimming in this pool. And Jake and I, we were happy. Genuinely, deeply happy in a way that had nothing to do with the house and everything to do with the fact that we'd stopped caring about other people's opinions. "Are you sure about this?" Jake asked as we sent out invitations. Completely. We were hosting a massive pool party for the whole family, both sides, my parents, Jake's parents, all the siblings, cousins, everyone. A celebration of our anniversary and our home. The day arrived sunny and perfect. By noon, the backyard was full of people, laughter, and the smell of Jake's famous grilled chicken. Patricia and Richard arrived carrying a gift, a beautiful framed photo of our house that Patricia had taken herself, with a note, "To the home you built with patience and wisdom. We're sorry it took us so long to see it." I hugged her, really hugged her. My parents pulled me aside. "Sweetheart, we're so proud of you. Not for the house, we were already proud, but for how you handled everything. I learned it from you. Quiet strength, patient planning, living your values instead of performing them." As the sun set, I stood on the pool deck watching everyone I loved, enjoying the space we'd created. Patricia was laughing with my mother. Richard was teaching the kids to cannonball. Ashley had finally stopped looking envious and started looking happy for us. Jake wrapped his arms around me from behind. No regrets? Not a single one. Not even the 3 years of hell? Especially not those. They taught me that my worth isn't determined by other people's opinions, that living well isn't about impressing anyone, that the best revenge isn't making people feel bad, it's living so well that their judgments become background noise to your happiness. He kissed my neck. "You're wise beyond your years." I'm 31 and own a mansion. I think I'm exactly as wise as I need to be. We laughed together, watching the sunset over the neighborhood, where we'd found not just a home, but a neighborhood, where we'd turned contempt into connection, judgment into growth, and assumptions into apologies. The morning coffee that started this story had been satisfying, but this, standing in our backyard, surrounded by family who'd learned to see us clearly, living a life we'd built on our terms, this was perfect. Some people just aren't meant to own property, Patricia had said 3 years ago. She'd been wrong. And every morning when I waved from my pool deck, I was reminded that being underestimated isn't an insult. It's an opportunity. The end.